This is episode 4 of the Local Life Ontario podcast. My name is Henry, and on this channel we talk with local people about things affecting our life here in Southwestern Ontario. In this episode, I talk with Dan Froese, who is both a farmer and local council member in Bayham County. Thanks everyone for joining again for another episode of Local Life Ontario. Today I'm joined by Dan Froese, and Dan is involved in numerous things. He's a farmer, he has a farmer's market and also a vegetable farm, and those two things are connected, I'm assuming, or are they separate?
Connected by family.
Okay, but two separate businesses.
Yes.
Okay, and the farmer's market is called Countryside, is that what it was?
Countryside Farmers Market.
Okay, and the vegetable farm is?
So vegetable, you could almost call it a grading, sorting type of a place.
Okay.
So we receive a lot of different, mainly cucumbers and peppers, and we receive them there and to sort them.
Okay, from other farms, they bring it to you,
Yes.
You guys sort it and package it and ship it out.
Yes.
Okay, and you are also involved, though, in local politics, from what I understand. You're part of the Municipal Council of Bayham.
I am.
So what does that mean? So my last episode, I had on this podcast James Lunny. He was a former NP, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with him was because I wanted to learn a little bit more about politics in Canada. I want to get involved a little bit more and figure out how things actually work in Canada. Him being MP, he knows a lot of different things because he's been involved in a lot of stuff and on the federal level. But I also want to get involved in the local stuff because we're living here in Southwestern Ontario, Bayham Township, now where we're a part of. But I don't know how those things work either, right? And so it's really good that you're part of the local council because now I can ask you stuff and you can give me the answers. So what is your position exactly as part of the council?
So I'm Ward 2 councilor.
Ward 2 council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bayham is a pretty small municipality in the grand scheme of things, and so there's three wards, and so they start at the beach, which is Port Burwell. That's Ward 1.
Okay.
And then Ward 2, and you, Henry, live in Ward 3.
Ward 3. Okay, so it's going from the beach this way, so 1, 2, 3.
Yes, sir.
So how far does it reach then? It just before Tillsonburg?
No, Bay Nor Line, the New England.
Okay,
yeah,
just down the road there. Okay,
yes, sir.
A couple kilometers away. Okay, so from the beach and then till New England there.
And we're the all the way east side of Elgin County, right?
Okay.
So Elgin County stretches along the beach, along the ocean, along the lake there, and so we're the very east side of it.
So are we all or does Bayham also encompass some other counties as well, or how does that work? Or just Elgin?
So Bayham is a municipality within Elgin County.
Okay, right? Within Elgin County.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not connected to any other ones, because those are some things I've been wondering about too. What's where and what's like, you got Elgin County, you got Oxford County, and you got Norfolk, and then you got Bayham, and then I'm trying to figure out where's what now. And
so Norfolk is right next to us, right?
Yeah.
We're not that far away, right? And so some of those lines, they separate the two municipalities, but that's also the federal and the provincial voting lines run somewhere along there too, right? So Rob Flack is Elgin Middlesex,
right?
Yeah. And so he doesn't represent Norfolk, right? So somehow those lines get divided there, and that's how.
Okay, and so Elgin County has different municipalities then. So
Yes.
This is Bayham Township, and then Malahide, I guess, would be then one also part of Elgin, and
Central Elgin.
And
I don't even know the other one, but is it West Elgin or so.
Okay, so four different municipalities in.
I believe that's it. Yes.
Okay, well that makes a lot more sense to me already. Good thing you came. Because some of these things you think, and for a lot of people listening, maybe even it's like, oh yeah, that's such simple stuff, and maybe it is when you know it.
It's incredibly intriguing how it's divided up, and it's geographical, which makes it a little territory, right? And so the difference within those municipalities is huge, right? Bayham doesn't have a single town, not even the size of Aylmer, right? We have Straffordville, Vienna,
Yep.
and Port Burwell are our biggest ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Eden's growing now.
Eden's growing. I give
Yeah.
it to you. Lots of construction going on, right?
Yeah.
So
Just across the road here. Yeah.
yeah. Geographically they're separated, but also within those municipalities, it's really diversified as to what's in them, right, and how they function and how much money they get, and right, and
Okay.
the taxes and stuff like that.
Yeah. So going back then to your position, so you're the you're part of the councilor of Ward 2, or how do you say?
Yep, councilor Ward 2.
Councilor of Ward 2. So Bayham, it's divided into 3 sections, and they call these sections wards.
That's right.
Okay.
So we have councilor Ward 1, councilor Ward 2, councilor Ward 3, mayor, and deputy mayor.
Okay, and they would be over all Bayham then?
That's over all Bayham, and they
Okay.
sit around, we call it the horseshoe, on Thursday nights to make decisions.
Okay, every Thursday night?
No, second and third, first and third Thursday of every month.
Okay, so twice a month.
Yep.
Meeting in Straffordville, there, then at the community center.
Yep.
Okay, and are these closed door meetings, like just the leadership is involved, or when do like regular people like me partake in anything?
You can partake in every meeting, actually.
Okay, so every time you have a meeting there on those Thursday nights, I could come over there and see what you guys are talking about.
That's right.
Okay.
Or on YouTube.
Okay, they have them all live streamed?
Yeah, live streamed. And yeah, ever since COVID, it's all live streamed.
Okay, right. So, yeah, I guess a lot of stuff changed ever since then.
And if you have something really burning or are really passionate, you're really passionate about Bayham, Henry, there's we allow up to 5 people, 2 minutes each at the beginning of every meeting, and they can come and address council. So and that's open to the public. You want
just share what's on your heart, what you're thinking about, something you would like to see or needs changing or needs adding.
Yep.
Okay, good, because I've been wondering about that. So twice a month you have meetings, and then I could come there, for example, if I had a free evening and listen to see what you guys are doing.
Yes.
How much room is there though for people? Like, is there enough room for
probably for 50 people?
Okay, 50 could come.
Oh yeah.
So do you notice a lot of people actually partake then? Do people from the community actually come there? No. Okay. So this was one of my questions then too. How much community involvement do you see happening?
Well, I would like to be critical to the public for not participating since I got involved.
Yeah.
But before I got involved,
you didn't either.
I wasn't either, right?
Yeah.
So I can't be critical.
Yeah.
But it is very valuable actually to see people get involved and care in a positive way.
Yeah.
There are some people that get involved in a not so positive way.
Yeah.
And
just always complain and never have anything maybe actually
quite critical and trying to block things and stuff like that. And and they're always usually the same people, and you get to know them, right? But to have people involved in a positive way and to give input, to give good input is so valuable as a councilor, as a leader, whatever you want to call it. And we really actually long for that.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned, you were the same way kind of before you got involved.
Yes.
So how long have you been involved in now? If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and maybe share it with your friends who are also locals here in Southwestern Ontario, maybe around the Bayham region. And also don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the latest episodes.
I'm in year 7.
Year 7. Okay. So what made you get involved then?
Just good question. Just caring for my community, I think. And my first term in Ward 2, nobody else ran. So I was just acclaimed. So if there's 2 people that want to run for the same position, you have to, that's when we have an election. But if there is no one else to run against you, you get acclaimed. And so the first term I was acclaimed, and to just get involved, to help along, right? To do something positive, to be a positive influence in the community, and to help.
And so, before we started this podcast, you asked me, why why a podcast? Why am I doing a podcast? And I shared some things with you. And so one of my reasonings that I gave you for starting the podcast was because it was a way to it helped me get involved with the local community, because that's what it's called, right? Local Life Ontario. So in starting very local right here where we live, because I find for myself, I have to find reasons to force myself to get to know something, right? If I want to learn something, I have to force myself to get involved in something of that thing, right? And
Yeah.
so if I want to get involved in the community, well, for me then now, this is kind of my starting point, because I don't even know how the politics here in Canada work anymore after being gone so long and coming back in and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So now the podcast, I force myself to talk with people like you, or like James Lunny last week, or other people that I have planned, not just about politics, but about everything. And it forces me to talk with them. And then I understand what's happening in the community, right? When I don't force myself, then I don't.
Yeah.
I have to put myself in a position where I'm actually involving myself. And so maybe kind of like that for you.
It takes energy, it takes willpower, it takes time,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes money.
Yeah.
Right. And so good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And Henry, maybe your next step is to run for local council.
Well, you never know. Like, the first thing though, that I need to understand is exactly how things work, right?
Yeah.
And like I, in the last episode that I had with James, I was saying it's hard to involve yourself, or to know, how to involve yourself when you don't know how things work, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know how things work at all, like even, when our meetings happening, like you just shared, who can come?
Yeah.
Is there room? Where are the meetings?
Yeah.
And like you say, that people can actually share there without me knowing any of those details. Well, I don't really know how to involve myself then in any of those kinds of things, because I have no idea. I'm clueless, right? And so that's kind of the first step. You got to figure out kind of what's happening in the background, even in where and with who.
Yeah.
So
well, 7 years ago, I think times were a little different. I think COVID has changed a lot as to how people can get involved and all that kind of good stuff, right? I was cold turkey. I really hadn't come to many meetings, maybe 2 meetings, and I did go meet with the mayor at the time, and with to try to get a little bit of what am I getting myself into, but very, very, I would call it cold turkey, just head first and
jump in.
go right, and felt completely unqualified too, right? So, and since then I've learned a lot. And so yeah, we just, I'm not a numbers guy, but we just had our budget meeting, and after 7 years, I understand a lot more of it. I can read them better. I know how they're put together, and I know who puts them together, right? So you can speak to them a lot better.
Yeah.
Whereas some people are very gifted in knowing math and numbers, and so we need all types. So
yeah, exactly.
Pretty much, if you have a heartbeat, Henry, you qualify to sit on council.
Let me see.
Still there.
Still beating.
Still there.
I guess I qualify. Here we go. Maybe somebody listening qualifies. Yeah, it's you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's you. But yeah, just checking to make sure I didn't turn it off when I hit. So let's talk back about your position then again. So you're part of the council now, and when you get together, do you find that you can work together fairly well with all of the different council members? So from Ward 1, 2, and 3, and also the mayor and deputy mayor, and anybody else, I guess, who's involved. Is there good communication between you all, just, in Bayham?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
If you and when you get involved, you hear a lot of different things, right, from neighboring communities and different municipalities, and you hear some horror stories. And we haven't had any of those.
Okay, good.
So for the most part, we're very coherent, and we get along. We, do we have differences? Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
But we are, I would like to think we're also quite mature as human beings. And when it comes time to the majority rules, the majority voted, and that's what we're going with, and
make a decision.
And you have to go with it, even if you didn't vote for it, right? So I think for the most part, we're extremely blessed with the people that are there,
Okay.
and the support we have.
Okay.
Like, and in this thing too, staff is really important. Like, so we make decisions on reports that staff writes, and
Okay.
then they're the ones that follow through with those decisions, right? So
Mm.
extremely important to work coherently with the staff as well. So it is good in Bayham.
Yeah. And so the staff then, who would you all be like? Who would all be in staff then?
So we have CAO, which is our chief operating officer,
Okay.
executive officer. So
Okay.
anyway, and then we have the clerk, and then usually they communicate things to the more junior staff. So
Okay.
and then often the lead of a department, they come and bring a report as well, and then if we approve it, they carry it through, and if we don't, then they come back with the changes that we asked for or whatever, and so that's how it, many decisions get made and carried out, right?
Okay. And so, have you noticed a difference? So, in 7 years, there's not a lot of community involvement, but have you noticed a shift in the amount of involvement that there has been, or maybe even thinking about COVID? Did that change anything? Like before or after, was one more involved than the other?
Good
Yeah.
question. So before COVID, it was not live streamed.
Yeah.
If you weren't there in person, then you could read the minutes.
Yeah.
I think the following week the minutes get posted
Okay.
on the Bayham website, and so now it's on YouTube, and you can go back 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings, whatever you want, and it's still there, right? So but as far as people involved, I don't think it's changed much.
Okay.
We just had the budget meeting, and I think online there was 4 people, and in the gallery probably 2 or 3.
Okay.
And this is
Besides
budget
leaders.
meeting. This is quite important, where the rubber hits the road type
Yeah.
of a thing, right? So
This is where our money's going.
if you want to know where it's going, this is the meeting to come to, right?
Yeah.
So and maybe some people do go on YouTube the day after and watch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a lady, a friend of ours, tell me that she she watches every Thursday night for comic relief.
Okay.
So take it for what it's worth, right? But
Yeah. So how long are meetings in general?
um we can have a 1 hour meeting, or we can have a 5 hour meeting.
Okay, so it
So
ranges quite a bit.
starting at 6 or 7, and so now we had some meetings go past 11, so we had
Okay.
to put in a bylaw that we had to all vote to approve like 2 minutes to 11 if we're going to continue. So it doesn't happen very often though.
Okay, but occasionally it can.
It can, yeah.
So you mentioned that you just finished the budget meeting. So can you share with us some of the things that are happening in our local region then right now? Like what are there any bigger projects that are being worked on now that you know now I'm here and I'm listening. It what's being decided that is being worked on? Maybe some of the bigger things.
Something quite exciting is what the Ontario government has brought down, and that's the second residential unit on most places. If you have room on your yard,
Mm-hmm.
you can now put a second residential, a granny flat, or whatever you want to call it, and so there's a lot of those applications coming through now.
Okay,
And
without having to get separate permits and all kinds of stuff made, or
you do still have to get permits, but some of the zoning that Ontario government
okay.
brought down, where property lines and different things often affect a lot of buildings, and
Yeah.
right, and oversized buildings and stuff like that. So ARU, that's what they're called, and so
Okay.
that's a good thing coming. I mean, more people are coming to Bayham because we
Yeah.
are rural. We have a lot of rooms. We have some big lots that
Yeah.
allow for that type of stuff, right?
So just to make it easier to make more dwellings available in the lots that are already kind of
Yes,
severed.
yes,
Okay.
without taking up farmland and stuff like that. So
Okay. So in the back of this house here, so in the yard there, that could potentially be made into another dwelling.
quite likely.
Okay.
I don't understand all the rules and regulations around it, but
Uh-huh.
quite likely you could have another. If it's big enough, you can have another dwelling there.
Okay.
They're smaller according to how big your first house is, if I understand it correctly, and so
Okay.
that's exciting. Something that has been talked about a lot the last 3 or 4 meetings is beach parking. So
Okay.
we've had free parking there since forever,
Mm-hmm.
and now we have put a policy forth to charge people for parking at the beach,
Okay.
and in an effort to try to generate funds
Mm-hmm.
for Bayham. There's some pretty big projects that Bayham is facing, especially Burwell. They need the water lines and the sewer lines. Everything there is quite old. Not
Okay.
everything. Some of that stuff is quite old, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Say it properly, right? And so those are big projects that are going to cost a lot of money, and so we have put beach parking in there, and an effort to make sure people park on the beach and not on top of the hill and on driveways. There's been a
Okay.
bunch of new bylaws that came in to prevent people from parking and
Just anywhere.
and just anywhere, so they will get fined if so. That's been something I've been quite passionate about. And
Okay. Well, I guess if you have your own house or something in the area as well, and everybody's always parking around on your stuff by your place, then it get kind of annoying. I could see.
yeah, that's all
Is that
good.
what you're
That is one
meaning?
thing,
Yeah.
but at the same time, if you have a house there
Mm-hmm.
and you do have room on your driveway to have 2 people park there for the day and they pay you $20 each,
Okay,
so
so that they
that
would
is to
get.
prevent that from doing them.
Okay, so that you would pay the people who live there.
Like, we went to a football game a while ago in
Uh-huh.
Hamilton, downtown Hamilton,
Okay.
and we got close to the stadium, and there was these people holding up signs, $30, and you could park right in their driveway. And at first we chuckled until we got close to the football stadium. There was no parking there. We're like, where did we come from? Let's turn around and go park in that driveway, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I'm referring to.
Okay.
These bylaws are preventing people from doing that, to
Oh,
make sure we're going to have all the people parked down where they have to pay at the beach.
okay.
So
Now I see what you're saying. Yeah.
sorry if it's a little confusing,
Yeah.
maybe too many details,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's a
Okay. So yeah, you want the people to park down there as opposed to parking up there.
yeah.
Everybody else is
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So what would the price then be of parking down at that area?
I believe it's going to be almost $25 a day.
Okay.
And
For a
and
vehicle or whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
And so they're putting up, there's going to be Wi-Fi. So you log onto your phone and you go to an app, and then you punch your credit card in there and you pay on your app.
Okay.
And then the bylaw officer can come around and just punch in your license plate and see if you paid for the day. And if you did, you're good. And if you're not, you probably won't be too good. But
Yeah.
and for Bayham residents, though, you must register online and you can park for free.
Okay. If you live in Bayham, you can park there for free.
Yes.
So
you have to register.
okay.
Do
So
not forget to register.
okay. Don't forget to register if you're in
Yes,
Bayham.
please.
So I'm living in Bayham now.
Yes, sir.
So if I register for the parking there, I can drive there and I can park for free. So it's just somebody coming from elsewhere when they come.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, well that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, we didn't want our own residents to have to
Yeah.
pay for
Because it's
our
supposed to be for them, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Okay. So those are a couple of things. Any other you mentioned that there's a couple of bigger projects that are coming up for Bayham, and then you said okay, some water and sewage maybe for Burwell that needed replacing. Are there any
yes,
other big upcoming things that need funding?
none that I can think of right now. I'm
Okay.
sure there are, but none as big as those. Like
Okay.
some of those, we're talking $20 million, right? And
Oh wow.
so, but we get grants, right? I think both federal and provincial, they help along with those kind of
Okay.
infrastructure projects, right? So yeah, it's not all, but that's like a big project though.
So thinking about money that gets spent from projects, so one project that had been started and it's sitting down in Port Burwell Beach right now is this guy,
Beauty.
right? This big submarine, not the kind you eat. So the Ojibwa or the Ojibwa, I'm not sure how do you say that properly?
Ojibwa.
Ojibwa. Okay. So I was gone when this all happened, right? It was part of my years when I was gone, but I heard that they were going to put a big submarine in Port Burwell. So tell us a little bit about how that came about, that this got dragged over there, and maybe what went wrong, I guess you could say, because I'm back now, but I've heard that it just didn't come out the way maybe some people imagined or wanted or something, and ended up being a lot of debt and a lot of lawsuits involved. So that's what I've heard. So give me a little bit of, let's get the backstory first. How did it come about that this came here?
Yeah. Anyway, it's a retired sub.
Okay.
You have been through it, Henry?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I went through it. It's very, very intriguing, incredibly interesting. But
Okay.
how it got here, they were trying to find a place for it. And I guess Burwell was just one of the places that got picked. There was a lot of political maneuvering and stuff. At that time, I don't think it was very desirable. Yes, it should attract tourism, and I do believe it does to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's doing some of what it was supposed to do. So I believe it's still it's run and owned by the Elgin Military Museum. Bayham, the municipality of Bayham, does not own it.
Okay, so Elgin owns it.
Elgin Military Museum.
Okay.
They run it and own it. If they haven't changed names or something,
okay,
that's who used to own it anyway. So,
mm-hmm.
So yeah, the total cost was supposed to be $6 million at the time, and we're talking 10 years ago now.
Yeah,
$6 million. That's
like 12 million now.
It is. You're probably right.
Yeah.
And so that was the cost of the project.
Yeah.
And before it started going, I believe the project, they asked Bayham, the municipality of Bayham, to co-sign for the $6 million loan. And at the council at the time voted in favor of co-signing.
So this was before you were, like, long before your time, right?
Yeah. And they decided to co-sign, and we got stuck with the bill. They didn't pay their bills, and so they took the money, the $6 million from the bank, and we got stuck with it. So that's kind of the gist of it. There's a lot involved in that, right? It's got 2 feet, right? 2 pillars that it sits on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pillars is actually on private land, and the other pillar is on the municipality of Bayham's land. So even that could get complicated. I don't think it is right now, but it could get complicated.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that sounds like trouble waiting to happen.
Yes, and it's not very easily moved, right? So
yeah, no kidding.
A very interesting fact about it is you go in there and it is so intriguing. It is so, first of all, you're a smaller guy than I am. You could probably stand up straight in most of the areas. I could in half the areas. It's quite small, but anyway, so you ask the people that are giving you the tours are actually some of the people that are very informed, that have had relatives, or I don't know if they themselves have been in there, or they have been in different subs working for the Canadian Navy. And so they cannot tell you where that submarine served ever, anywhere where it was. They cannot tell you anything like that. Like, was it in the Second World War? Was it, was it here? No, it's completely top secret. I found that very intriguing. It's retired. It's old. Like, you'd like to think, what's the harm in knowing these details?
Give me a little history of it, right? But yeah,
not.
I guess I could see too that the sensitive information, that because that also tells you, if this was involved in such and such back then that means that such and such is probably happening right now as well. And then
you never know, right? So
yeah.
And so we got stuck with the loan. The municipality of Bayham has taken legal steps to make sure that we never will own it. We don't want to own it. So 10 years ago, if I understand correctly, they were gonna pay $1 million to have it destroyed, to have it disassembled.
Okay.
So
like before it was brought,
yes, before it was brought here, it was going to cost them $1 million to disassemble it.
Okay.
So to have it disassembled now, like you said, that would be $2 million now. So we never want to own it, because of a lot of the legalities around it and stuff like that, right? So, so that you don't have to pay for that then as well. Yeah, That's
Okay.
right. And so some of the really, really, really good news now is um, it's paid for. We paid for the debt.
Well, that's what I just heard. Was it 2 issues ago in the Elmer Express? I think it was. And then I read that it was paid off after all these years, and that's where I found out that you were actually part of the council. Or I was wondering because it was mentioning your name and some of these things that were going on, and so I figured, okay, you must have some involvement in the local councils and stuff, and so which turned out to be true. But one thing that I appreciated about something that I read in there in the article was something that you said in there, and it's different than what we hear a lot of nowadays. I don't know when this happened, maybe a number of years ago, but you had mentioned something to people about we didn't want to leave this debt for our kids, something along that lines. We wanted to we wanted to pay for it so that our kids don't have to. Something about that, and I thought, well, that is really nice to actually think about that because you see so much stuff happening nowadays where I mean the world's in debt, everything's in debt everywhere, and we're
Everywhere.
thinking the kids will figure it out. They'll grow up and we'll let them deal with the mess that we've made. Right? That's what's happening. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to, push this aside, pretend I don't see it. And so when I read that, you know, no, let's not let our kids deal
Yeah.
with it. They don't need this debt on top of everything else, they're going to have. I just thought, wow, that's so much better to think of it that way.
Thank you. If you, yeah, thinking about that and talking about that, just an
Mhm.
example is the US has like 40 some trillion dollars.
I think it's 37 or
Oh,
38 now. Yeah,
okay.
so it's close to
Close.
40.
I don't even know how much a
It's going to be
trillion,
40 now anyway.
I don't even know how much
We're
a
seeing
trillion is. I have no idea what that even looks like
it's
remotely.
yeah,
But my point is, I was going to make is they now spend more money on paying interest on their debt than they do on their defense budget.
yeah,
Which if you look at the U.S. Army,
yeah,
the Navy, whatever, it is so massively huge.
yeah,
It's unfathomable to me. So
yeah. Just to pay
talking
debt.
about debt,
Yeah,
yeah.
or just to pay
So
interest. Yeah.
so when I first came on to council and I got to know a little bit that we were paying over $300,000 a year as a municipality towards the debt on the thing,
Mm-hmm.
on the loan, not on the thing. Let's keep that separate.
Okay. Yeah.
On the loan, we were paying over $300,000 a year, and and I knew that the loan was going to be due in 2025 in March.
Mm-hmm.
And I said at the time, let's just pay for it, guys. Let's let's sharpen our pencils. Let's run our books tight. Maybe we did raise taxes for that reason as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it hurt.
Yeah.
And we got blamed for some of that. We got
Yeah.
some not so positive feedback some of the time, right?
Yeah.
And so and now it came due, and the beautiful thing about the loan was I think it was around 2% interest.
Okay.
Now, if we should have had to refinance the
Mm-hmm.
4 million that were still left owing on that
Yeah.
debt, that would be a massive increase in interest on that loan. Like
Yeah.
our payments would have gone up
Yeah.
for sure. So, but yeah, through a lot of hard work and a lot of talking and convincing, and we managed to do it. It was a huge accomplishment for Bayham.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier, Bayham is fairly small, and that's
Yes.
a big, expensive project that was kind of
Yes.
thrown on your lap, after somebody else not paying for it.
Yeah.
But it is like you say, maybe you had some people, against your this idea of paying for this now, but it had to be paid anyway.
Yes.
How are you going to pay for it, right? Or again, this idea, well, let's just let the kids deal with it, right?
Yeah.
No, and it does hurt. It does hurt paying off debt. It does hurt paying interest, and that's maybe kind of for all of us always just a wake up call. Well, what are we getting involved in? What kind of debt are we making? Because we know in our daily lives that interest hurts,
It does.
right? And this does as well. The longer we push it off, the
Yeah.
more money it sucks.
I think a lot of people who purchased homes during COVID when the interest rate was below 2%, those mortgages are coming due fairly soon here.
Mm.
It could hurt a lot of people with the higher interest rate that we have right now. Even though they've come down a long ways, it's still quite a bit higher than what it was during COVID, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I thought that was a great way to think about it. Such a relief compared to what you hear so much nowadays. And just push all the debt aside. Just keep on pushing it aside. No, let's take care of it. Let the kids be free, I guess we would say. But moving over to some other things. So I got a picture here. Usually I have a picture of some local place on the screen here as a background picture. Usually I have somebody else's picture that I take. But this time I'm like, hey, I had a nice picture here. Have you ever seen this place?
I haven't.
So this place is in Palmerston. Have you heard of Palmerston? It's like north of Ilderton, just a small little town
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, right. So about a half hour north of Strathroy, Kitchener, or whatever. That's where this is. We were there last year for a wedding, and walked through this park, and thought, well, this is Local Life Ontario, and some of the people might be looking for some local parks. So here's one. It's got a nice fountain. It's really nice. So this is part of it as well. So that's an old train station. So they got the train there and everything, and a nice, really nice park there. And so small town, but really nice park. So if you're ever in Palmerston or in the area, just to stop by here. It's actually very nice. The train station wasn't open when we were there, but there's a train, steam engine.
Yes.
So a nice little local place.
Isn't it amazing to see how well some of that stuff was preserved? How much energy and effort they preserved. Some of that probably built in 1910. Like,
oh look! Now that you said that, how did you know that? 1910 it says.
Oh, that was a guess. I was in a couple of weeks ago. We were in one, and it was not the locomotive, but it was like a first class cabin with a kitchen in it and the whole 9 yards, and it was built in 1901. Yeah. And so well preserved. Like, somebody put so much energy and stuff, and I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, it's a nice part of history, right? To have those things sitting around
and so is the sub.
Yeah,
it's just the story behind it is a little complicated, but now that it's paid for, I think we can all just take a deep breath and go and enjoy it.
Yeah,
right. And so they have really good tours there. I saw people there yesterday or the day before taking a tour. So surprised that it was open. It's kind of cold, right? But
yeah, it had been warm and now cooled off again. This week's supposed to be a little colder, but it'll warm up again. We're getting to the warmer time, so maybe more people will go see it now. And then maybe it can give some income for that income. Then though, that goes elsewhere then, or does it go part of it to Bayham?
No, we get nothing.
Okay, that goes all to the Elgin Military Museum. Okay,
we get nothing. We pay nothing.
Gave them a gift.
Yep.
At least we're free from the debt.
Yes.
So there was also a nice mural that was there in Palmerston. So yeah, just a nice little park here in Palmerston. If you guys listening are ever in Palmerston, just go take a look. Small, really nice.
What I enjoy about that kind of small community life, like as the festivals that we have. I know Aylmer just had a maple syrup festival, I think three weeks ago or something, and those are we have the Edison Fest, and so those kind of.
Is that in Stratfordville or Edison Fest?
It's in Burwell.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's several different. We have the Watermelon Fest.
Yeah, that would be
that's in Stratfordville thing. Those kind of little community things.
Yeah.
Is for me makes a really good day.
Yeah.
We have an interesting thing at the Watermelon Fest. We usually have a bus or two of Chinese, Cantonese, of that ethnic background anyway, to come, a bus or two, and they come and partake in the festival, the small town festival.
Okay.
They have a good old time. You can tell it's free watermelons, right? And so very interesting.
So what time of the year is the Watermelon Festival then?
When watermelons are on, so probably I don't know exactly, but end of July or somewhere in August maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, weather is usually really good, nice and hot.
There we go.
So many free train rides and bouncy castles for the kids and ponies, and it's a beautiful little festival we have going there, and that's what I appreciate about small towns.
Yeah. Just the local people getting together and
Oh
doing
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, having a good time.
yeah. The politicians, of course, we're have a seed spitting contest. So,
The politicians do.
well,
So who can
the
spit
local
furthest?
council,
Okay.
local
Yeah.
council. Sue Chilcott is really good. She's the Ward 3 councilor
Okay.
for
She
some
spits the
reason.
furthest.
I did. I had the trophy last year. This year she won it. So
Okay.
it's the ugliest trophy you ever want to have in your house. But
Okay.
if
But
you,
it's a trophy.
it's a trophy.
There we go.
Yeah.
So speaking about watermelons and farms and stuff, so you want to farm, and is I'm assuming that market is not open yet, or do you have it open year round? Because you
No.
have a greenhouse as well there, right? Or
Yeah, we have a small greenhouse there.
okay,
Right now, all our starter plants are in there.
okay,
It's already green. They're tiny little pepper plants. It looks really nice in there. So
okay.
yeah.
So when do you open up?
May 2-4 weekend.
Okay,
So the
so
long weekend in May
okay,
is
so a month and a half from now, a
yeah
little over.
is when we open up. So
Okay,
yeah, it's usually when we get the food truck ready, and not too much local produce is ready at that time.
mm-hmm.
But the asparagus is in, right, and
Okay,
people love their fresh asparagus, and so do I. I
yeah,
love my fresh asparagus, and so that's mainly why we open. But then we also
okay,
open the food truck, and we bring in some other stuff to to get people to stop by, and when they pick up one thing, maybe they pick up two,
mm-hmm.
and until till July is when more and more of our own local produce comes on,
Mm-hmm.
and by the end of July and August, September, we have so much fresh, beautiful local produce, and at a good price. And I'm not
So
doing
then,
this to promote the farmers market. I'm doing this to promote Bayham and Ontario. Like
yeah,
I
yeah, I like the local food stuff too, the farmers markets, things like
yeah,
that. So at the market there, like lots of other farmers and stuff, can they also bring stuff there as well?
we have some.
Mm-hmm.
We have some. We grow most of it ourselves.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you grow from almost everything.
It we have very rich soil in Ontario,
Mm.
and we do have a short summer. When you look at down south, right, we have a
Yeah,
short summer and a short growing season, I should
yeah.
say, maybe, and that's why we start our plants early,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have rhubarb, we have some um, dill and beets and stuff like that, all getting started now already, and
Mm-hmm.
so we'll have lettuce next week just to get it started, so that
Yeah,
it's ready for sale. Um, but it's due to our short growing season, and
yeah.
pretty much anything grows in Ontario, as per your question. Um, Onions, watermelons, cantaloupe, beets, rutabaga.
I don't even know what that
You
is, but
you
okay,
you think of it, it pretty much grows in Ontario.
okay,
Like, yeah, we don't grow the tropical fruit, but
yeah.
we do have great apples, peaches. We don't grow them there, but they grow in Ontario, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so um, what's taking off a little bit is homesteading, and
Okay,
what
yeah,
homesteaders do a lot, as the way I understand, I don't understand it too well, is preserve, right? So
mm,
you put it in jars, you freeze it, and
yeah,
while it's fresh, you flash freeze it and stuff, and preserve it for the winter, right? And you
yeah,
still have the local stuff through the winter, right? Stuff.
yeah. Keep all of your own stuff during the winter, or make your own stuff.
Yes,
Grow your
yes,
own stuff in the summer, and then preserve it for the
yeah.
winter.
So
Yeah,
now we call it homesteading, or
yeah,
whatever. Back in the day, that's just how you had food during the
yeah.
winter.
It's just life.
It was
Yeah,
just life,
yeah,
right? My mom remembers preserving meat and
yeah,
everything like that in jars and stuff like that. So
yeah. It sounds strange for me
yeah,
or anybody my age too, because it's not what we grew up with, right? So we have so much. We got freezers now, fridges. We got
yeah.
all these different ways of preserving stuff.
And you just go to the grocery store and buy it. The
Yeah,
grocery store
exactly.
makes it all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They just make it there. It's just like the bank. If you're out of money, well, just go to the bank. They got money. That's what the kids say, right?
They got lots.
Yeah. So thinking about that though, so you have a business, in farming, and now though the topic of tariffs and everything comes in, right? And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Have you noticed for for your part that it's affected you as of right now, with how things have been going over the past month or two, or not really yet?
Oh, very, very much.
Really?
So, so Henry, it's actually not the tariffs that are doing anything. It's the threat of tariffs.
Okay. Yep.
And in my opinion, that's actually worse than if they would have just
Mm.
put the tariffs on. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, so what I heard this morning, there's a machine shop in Elmer
Hmm.
are all of a sudden having an influx of work from Canadian people who need stuff machined.
Okay.
So very good news.
Yeah.
Very good news. And what I also serve on the Ontario Provincial Marketing Board,
Okay.
and we oversee the contract for cucumbers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And we've been dealing with it now for the full 2 months, trying to put policies in place that if the tariffs do come in, how much is the farmer paying? How much is the buyer paying? How much is the end user paying? Right.
Hmm.
So trying to divide it 3 ways so that it doesn't hurt one person so bad. And
Hmm.
so there's a lot of that has been going on, a lot of meetings. So, but we do have some policies in place now, and so even last week, um, one of our pepper buyers called and said, hey, we need another 6 million pounds of bell peppers. And it's a buyer that called him out of Ontario that used to get their bell peppers out of the States.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah. So now they want to source it locally.
Yeah.
So noticing that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
even though even though the tariffs aren't on going into the US, but I think there is some tariffs on some stuff coming into Canada now. I think Doug Ford
Okay. Ever since
left.
those threats and different
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
Doug Ford left some of those tariffs on
Okay.
because I
Mhm.
think the US was back and forth and yes or
Yeah. There's
no
been
and
yeah. There's been a
no.
lot of back and forth. Yeah. I guess Trump said he's going to start something, and then he said, "Okay, now we're not going to." And
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And now what is it? So it's March 31st now, and in 2 days it's April 2nd, and the way I guess Donald Trump is calling it, he's saying it's Liberation Day. So I'm not sure what that's going to mean, right? But I guess then his plan maybe is going to actually come out what what he's actually going for, right? Which is kind of
yeah,
up in the air. Like what does that really mean for all of us, right? For the
yeah,
states, for Canada, for the whole world. And so this might actually come out after that, right? Because I'm not. I don't think I'm going to get it all edited before,
okay.
before then. So if you're listening and you're wondering, so this was recorded on the 31st of March.
There you go.
So whatever happens on the second, we don't know yet at this point. But what do you think could happen? Like, what do you think is going to
Yeah.
happen there?
So what's involved is so many different commodities, right?
Hmm.
We have a quota system for milk in Ontario,
Okay.
and so the milk farmers are protected. And what listening to Kevin O'Leary, I don't know if you know who he
Hmm.
is. He's a financial guy, and he's a
Yeah.
Canadian, so I listen to him sometimes. And
Yeah.
and he said the other day Trump is after the milk quota. He wants to see it disband, right? But how
Okay.
much truth there's to it, no one knows, right?
Yeah.
That was his take on it. So there's milk quota, there's chicken, and then obviously cars and steel is a really big one. So there's so many commodities. What he really wants, or the U.S. really wants, we don't know, right? It started with the smuggling of fentanyl,
Yeah.
and
And yeah, I found the same thing as well. All of the things that they've been saying is the reason for these things. It actually isn't, because it started off with fentanyl, and okay, I can understand that if that's true, right? Or smuggling stuff. But then Canada did, what was it? Put 10,000 troops or something on the border, or
yeah,
what was it?
yeah,
Or then they spent billions of dollars. They're like,
yeah,
okay, we're going to invest billions of dollars in doing that, and so that was taken care of. And then the next thing, though, that was said was it's because of what was I think I might have written it down. Oh, like a trade deficit or something
yeah,
because of something else. And
yeah,
then, but thinking about that, well, there obviously also has to be a trade deficit because they're 10 times as big as what we are. Like there's 10 times as many people in the United States as there is here. Obviously, we're not going to buy as much of their stuff as they're going to buy from our stuff
yeah.
because there's 10 times as many people, right? And so there's that, and that's not really the reason either. I personally think it's just he wants, like he said, he just wants Canada to be the 51st state. He wants the resources and things like that. That's what I think. Right. Personally, but
It is odd when you hear that we as Canadians, we should be the wealthiest people on earth because of the natural resources that Canada
Mhm.
has:
Yeah,
oil, gas, hydro, and then minerals,
yeah,
minerals upon minerals. And so we should all be quite wealthy if it was processed properly and
yeah.
divided properly, right? Or
If we could
sold
use it,
properly even, right? Yeah.
yeah,
And so yeah, you have to find an end user. We can't use it all ourselves because we have 40 million and the US has 340 million people, right?
yeah,
And so yeah, so they are a valuable trading partner,
yeah,
and we did have an agreement. It was NAFTA, which Donald Trump signed when he was in his first term of office, right?
yeah.
And so that's the whole 51st state thing. It doesn't really bother me.
No.
If we were to all of a sudden have U.S. money here, what else would change?
Yeah,
Those states have a lot of individual decision making power,
yeah.
right? And I think they just did the whole school thing there. They got rid of the national school board,
Oh, yeah,
if I understand it correctly, to
yeah. I
give all
think
the
so.
power to the states. So we would still be a country on our own. It doesn't really bother me.
Mhm.
Imagine all the money we could collect, though, all the money, Canadian money, if it was no longer in use, Henry. We could just collect so much of it. It would be so like invaluable.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess there's different views on
Oh
this
yeah,
idea
there is.
of becoming the 51st state. I don't think we should become the 51st state. One thing that I would see would be a problem in the long run with an idea like that is the problem of monopoly. So regardless of whether you think it would be a good idea now or not, there's always this problem of monopoly. Monopoly is something that the government itself, like all governments, are usually against, because what happens with a monopoly is one party gains too much power, and it destroys competition, it destroys
Mm-hmm.
a business, it destroys a lot of things because there's one area that it's consolidated power. And I almost feel like that kind of a thing could happen as well. Like, what happens once let's say Canada and the States come together, and Greenland too. I mean, Trump wants Greenland as well, and Gaza, right? It's almost turning into a one world government under Trump, maybe. Um, but like, you know, you have all of these different places come together, and you're consolidating power into one place now. But let's say that Trump would be, an amazing leader for all of that. Let's say that, somehow it would just be absolutely amazing, right? And you know, Canada and the States and Greenland or whatever would all just now be one great big country. But what happens when the next leader steps in?
Mm-hmm.
The next leader is, a lot of people didn't want Kamala Harris to be the leader.
Yeah.
And if she would have been the leader, would people still want to be part of the same country? Canada, Greenland, so but now you have a different party with different ideas then as well. So the parties always change,
Yeah.
right? And now though you've consolidated power into one place, and so you're kind of limited as to what you can do. Because
Yeah.
I almost find that having separate countries is almost like a checks and balance system in and of itself in a way,
Yeah.
because they kind of
Yeah.
keep themselves, in balance. Sometimes it's good or bad. Like, you know,
Yeah.
thinking about some things. Trump says, okay, if Canada would be 51st state, the taxes would drop, and I mean, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
All
Don't
those.
we all? Yeah.
I mean, let's do that, right? And let's say all of those things would come into play, but then again, like, if a different leader steps in and has different ideas, like you've just now put everybody into one group, and I think in the end it can be dangerous. For the same reason as often maybe we would think of something like a one world government.
Yeah.
That's often spoken of, and how that could be dangerous, having a one world government. And the reason is because of this consolidation of power into one group, with
Yeah.
one or two people at the top. That's the same kind of a problem, right? You have just one central place where everything is being done. So I kind of think about that, whether or not it would be good or bad right now, like thinking, like, regardless of that, but how would it be in 5 years from now
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Uh,
everything is together?
That's a very, very valid point. You know what? Where my mind goes when you talk like that, that
Mhm.
one world power type of a thing,
Mhm.
is AI. So
Oh yeah.
your next guest, you might want to have some AI people on. So let me.
Yeah.
And speaking of AI,
Uh-huh.
here's a thought for you. I had a nice long conversation with my friend Dan last week, and Dan is a computer wizard, an absolute wizard, and so he says he uses AI every day. So
Mhm.
and so he knows I'm on local council, and so this was his spin on it. Okay, just yeah, and this is just food for thought, Henry.
Yeah.
You don't even need to reply to
I'll,
what this is. So
I'll just soak it in.
he said he said, how about we get rid of all government?
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
modern age we live in.
Mhm.
You can sit at home and on your phone, and there's a proposal from the staff in Bayham. Okay, and you read over the proposal, and you have 1,000 voting chips for a year. How many voting chips do you want to contribute to the proposal? And every citizen in Bayham has these voting chips.
Mhm.
There's so we don't need council anymore. We don't need no Mark Carney. We don't need no Pierre Polyev. We don't need any of them,
Uh-huh.
because we're all voting on everything on our smartphones.
Yeah.
So none of that. Just vote on the issue, and you have 1,000 points for Bayham. You have 1,000 points for Ontario, and you have 1,000 federal points.
Okay.
So put your whole 1,000 points on one issue if you're really passionate about it.
Yeah. And then wait till next year to get another 1,000.
Yes. No more
Interesting.
government.
Yeah.
We're all governing ourselves with our smartphones
Yeah.
from in our homes.
Yeah. And the AI is sorting it all through and.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Couldn't do without it.
Yeah.
There's some food for thought for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought for sure. But okay, so you mentioned no, we don't need a Mark Carney, we don't need Pierre Polyev, we don't need any of these other political leaders. But right now we still have them.
We do.
And there's an election coming up. It's coming up soon, so in just less than a month now. So where are we going to vote? So here's another question. So once it's time to vote, where am I going to vote?
Where?
Yeah.
At
Where's the voting places?
Stratfordville Community Center.
Okay.
Yep.
Because these are things that I need to know too if I'm
Yep.
thinking how to get involved locally.
I think there's a church in Corinth, and then in Braun. So yeah, you would stay in your municipality. I think it's easier for you with your ID card or whatever, your voting card that you get sent, right? So
Okay.
I'm sure you could go vote somewhere else. No, you wouldn't want to even go vote somewhere else. So Vienna, Stratfordville. Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to send a voting card in the mail
Yeah.
before then, and that's what I'm going to take. Well, I remember the last election, the provincial election, then they did that too. That was like last minute, I think, that we even got that. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. My wife and I were, we want to get involved. We're like, hey, let's vote. Let's, do our part to, vote for somebody. And it was so back and forth, like on what we were supposed to do. We had no idea. And then, we were just about to go to St. Thomas. We're like, well, now this is, you know, last chance to go do it over there or something. And then I think the day before, I don't remember. Then all of a sudden we finally get this voting card.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even know we were going to get because I don't know how these things work here now. We've just been back for a year now, and sometimes I think some of those things could be worked out better or more clear.
So were you able to go vote once you had your card?
So we
told
did.
You where and
Yeah. So yeah, and then we could go to Stratfordville, which was nice. We didn't have to drive all the way to St. Thomas, and which was good. So yeah, we did then just go to Stratfordville, and we voted over there.
So yeah, pretty much same process. You'll probably have the same people in there scrutineering and watching over things, right? And
so the provincial voting and the federal voting happens in the same place always in general. Is that how
in general,
it works?
yeah, same office, same the voting offices, I should say. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, now I know that then. So what do you think is going to happen now with our elections? So I mean, we had Justin Trudeau was in power, right? And his ratings were at the bottom, as we all know, and Pierre Polyev was on the top of the list, and it seemed inevitable that he's going to be next prime minister. And then, Justin Trudeau steps out, and Mark Carney's going to step in, and then Trump talks about tariffs, and there's all these changes happening, and now from online polls anyway, what they're saying is now Mark Carney's ahead. So, what do you think? How's it look in your eyes? What do you see?
I'll be quite frank with you.
Okay.
I think both the Ontario election and this Canadian election just called at the absolute worst time that could ever be called,
Mm.
just because of this whole tariff thing.
Mm.
It affects us so much at the grassroots level where we grow produce to export to the United States, right?
Mm.
Do you know that we grow as Canada, we grow 40,000 tons of pickling cucumbers.
40,000 tons?
Yes.
Okay.
They get okay, so most of them get exported. There's very little, over 90% get exported to the United States.
Oh.
So do you know how many tons of cucumbers Canadians eat a year? 40,000 tons. So you want to talk tariffs, right? And so I'm answering your question just in a bit of a long way.
Yeah, it's good.
So tariff, it's going to get tariff going into the United States as a fresh pickle, and then get tariffed coming back in the jar, ready for sale. So so that's why I'm saying if we had a government in place that was working and not just working on getting elected, we could hopefully get some things in place and get some things done, right?
Yeah.
And it just seems like that is just all they're using the tariffs for now is just a threat against each other. Oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm so that kind of politics I'm quite sick and tired of.
Yeah.
And the other part of this whole election and politics and news in general is I think we have a really hard time really finding out what's true. They spin things. So is Mark Carney, his head office is in New York for his multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
His family lives in New York. Is that really true?
Yeah.
Pierre Poilievre, like, is it really true what they're? I find that very difficult to discern and to, right? And so I try to do myself a favor and not just listen to, and I'll just use the U.S. as an example. I don't just listen to Fox. I don't just listen to CNN or CNBC, right? Because
listen to numerous places to see different sides.
Some days I just feel like they all lie about the same thing in a different way. And
yeah.
So that part, to get to where your question as far as the election is, I think it's an extremely important election for Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then Donald Trump says he would rather work with the Liberals, instead of with the Conservatives in Canada. And you scratch your head and you're like, what exactly is going to happen here, right?
Yeah, he's just saying that because he's mad that Pierre must have said something negative or whatever.
In one certain day, right?
Yeah.
He had a negative.
And you notice that oftentimes about Trump. Now, whether you like him or hate him doesn't really matter, but you notice these things. If somebody says something good about Trump at any point, right, then, Trump is all over that guy, right? And, oh, man, this is the most amazing guy. And then the next day, though, if somebody says something maybe negative or whatever, maybe about Trump or something that he did or said, then this maybe like Pierre Poilievre, then Trump said, what does he say? He's stupidly not my friend or something, right?
Yeah.
Right. But in the past, he's said good things about Pierre, but it's one of those things, and everybody knows it. Like the people that love Trump and the people that hate Trump, I think all know it, that he is, how do you put it? I heard this once said before, that he prioritizes like loyalty, like absolute loyalty, like in people. Like you have to be absolutely loyal, like and to get on his good graces, you don't sway in any way. It's either you say Trump you're doing good or whatever, and then you let him be on your side, or you're pushed to the side, right? And so
what he said about Doug Ford is he really likes a man who can stand his ground, right? So
Okay.
And was that a good day or was that a bad day? We don't know.
Okay.
But as far as the election, though, I think it's going to be extremely interesting. Like even on CBC News, our public news broadcaster here in Canada, right? They're saying that even Jagmeet Singh is in danger of losing his seat,
Hmm.
right? Um, the liberal leader in Ontario during the Ontario election lost her seat, didn't win her own riding, right? So some of those things, I think they're fairly important to pay attention to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what are polls? Where were the polls taken? Were they
Mm-hmm.
taken in downtown Toronto or in downtown Elmer? Like, I think so.
Yeah.
Was it a true demographic of the people of Canada, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just dialing a random number, the people in Toronto far outnumber the rest of the people in Ontario
Yeah.
by far, right? And so, does Toronto pick the next leader just because there's the most people there?
Yeah.
But even I think in those areas, um, some of the people are maybe a little bit tired with the way we've been having it because we're feeling the pinch
Yeah.
financially. We're feeling the pinch. Groceries is more, rent is more, taxes is more, gas is more, everything is more money,
Yeah.
and yet,
And that was all, like, to
right?
think about, that was all before anything with Trump, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it didn't it doesn't have anything to do with Trump. Like that was all before.
yeah.
Like this was all our own doing. Like
So
here in Canada, right? And we need to remember that because it is true. People were tired of how things were because everything was getting expensive. Things weren't working well, right? And they were going the wrong direction. And like you say, a lot of people saw that.
yeah,
And a lot of it, it's almost, it's being overshadowed by what's happening now with the States and Canada,
yeah,
right? That's the thing.
yeah.
Like that's kind of overshadowing all of these other things. And
The things that really matter,
yeah.
right? So, in my opinion, if I could have a say in something,
Yeah.
it would be let's have a majority government.
Mm.
I think what we had in the last, was it 4 or 5 years with the NDP and the Liberals working off of each other
Mm.
and having to support one another, and I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah.
So I would really like to see a majority government,
Mm-hmm.
like period.
Yeah. One party that's
Yes.
controlling it.
Yeah.
And the NDP didn't like, so you always noticed it too. So the NDP was helping the Liberal Party as well, but also at the same time always like saying things against them too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
But
yeah, I'm gonna help your party, but man, you guys suck, right? Or
but they
like,
were helping themselves in the meantime,
yeah,
right? The Liberals had to support their initiatives if they wanted to continue to have
to
a
have their support.
coalition, to
Yeah.
have their support, right? So that's the reason I don't think it was healthy, right?
Mm.
Because too much giving
Yeah.
because you needed to get it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Too much giving.
So going back to this idea of tariffs and about the trade between Canada and the States, it's kind of up in the air as to how things are going to happen. But a lot of things have already changed.
Yes.
Like in Canada, a bunch of people are just starting to say, no, just buy Canadian. Before anything's even tariffed, right? Before there's any difference, like now we're going to buy Canadian, we're going to do this stuff. Do you think maybe potentially it has, or that there's potential for this to turn into something good for Canada in the long run? That we start thinking more about, can we actually do stuff ourselves a little bit more?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like what you were just touching on is buy Canadian, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what we're noticing, and a lot of other people are doing, and so are we, is so you walk into the grocery store and you need 2 bell peppers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's your selection, grown in the U.S. or in Mexico, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the only two Oh no, we do have option of grown in Canada because we have a huge greenhouse industry in Leamington.
Mm-hmm.
So which one are you going to pick?
Mm-hmm.
Even though the Canadian one is a little bit more money,
Mm-hmm.
and people are actually picking the Canadian one or the Mexican one instead of the US one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing stories of the grown in the US section is completely full, and the one right next to it is empty.
Mm-hmm.
My sister experienced it with strawberries. The
Okay.
US ones were actually quite a bit cheaper, and most of them were sitting there, and the shelf right next to the Mexican grown ones was empty. So
Okay.
it is happening. So
Mm-hmm.
it can be good for that short term. Long term, we would need a pickling plant in Canada
Mm-hmm.
to pickle our own pickles we love so much,
Yeah, because I was
right?
from what you said, 40,000 tons of pickles. What do you think? 90% gets shipped to the States, and then from there it gets shipped back as pickles.
Yep.
But here in Canada, we eat 40,000 tons of cucumbers. Cucumbers or pickles?
I call them
Or
pickles. People get
a year
confused.
in.
A lot of times, a cucumber is the English one, the long one, right? So I
Okay,
just call them pickles.
like just for the regular
Yeah,
small
yeah.
cucumbers. Okay, so we have 40,000. Most of them usually get shipped to the States before being sent back, but we eat 40,000 anyway.
Yeah.
So we could just eat them right here.
And put them in a jar here.
Yeah, put them in a jar here.
That's the long term answer to your
Mhm.
question, right? So,
And I guess that has been the same topic in regards to oil as well,
yeah,
right? Because our oil, we have a lot of oil in Alberta, but there's no refineries. If I think is what the problem is, right? There's no refineries there, and it gets shipped to the States,
that's right.
and then once it's refined, then it gets shipped back to Canada,
Yeah.
and then we use it for
Yeah.
all of our things. And
Yeah.
so we have it already. We just need to make the refineries, which would produce jobs as well,
Lots of jobs.
and then we have that too. I guess how it all works then with economy, thinking about the American economy then as well. What would their economy then look like? Because Trump also wants the thinking about the states. He also wants more people to make things in their country as well. That their country makes stuff for them. And Canada's now thinking more. Okay, well, our country can make stuff more for our country. Would it, in general, be a good idea if most countries would do most of their own things separate anyway?
I don't think so, Henry.
No.
I think the best is to have free trade.
Hmm.
Not exactly free trade, but to have trade and lots of it, because we do have a lot of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
We do have more than we need.
Yeah.
But we do need their steel. We do need their steel or their manufacturing or
Mm-hmm.
their milk or whatever it may be, or their pickling plant, so that
Mhm.
we can have our pickles, right? So to trade those things, I think, in my opinion, that's the best. So
Okay.
as far as the U.S. getting affected, I think Canada we are their largest trading partner.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think what really is affecting them more is the Chinese, because he was also putting tariffs on the Chinese goods, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think immediately, I think the U.S. people are going to pay more for their goods.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the long run, I don't know if it would go down, like
Yeah.
with making their own, let's just say, toys.
Yeah.
We know that most toys are made in China, so
Well, almost everything is made in China.
right?
Like almost everything probably in this room is probably made in China because they make everything there. Like when you think about that, China is so far ahead of most countries because they make absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Like and sometimes there's these two sides when we think about China. Sometimes they get criticized. You think about, cheap Chinese stuff or knockoff Chinese stuff or whatever. But what we oftentimes don't realize is the good stuff that we also have is also the Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Chinese make the cheaper stuff, but they also make the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we don't think that. Or we don't realize that. So the Chinese knockoffs are knockoffs of the things that they're also making themselves.
Yeah.
I know somebody in Mexico once said to me, he had known somebody who had went to China once. Had went to some place where, I don't know, where they made lots and lots of different things, right? Some kind of street where you could buy I think he said you could buy almost anything there. Like you could buy so much stuff. He said, if you want cheap stuff, they'll make it for you. You can get really cheap stuff. That if you want really good quality, high quality, good stuff, they'll make that for you too. Like depending on what you want, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and so if you think about thinking about that, the Chinese manufacturing capabilities are so huge, and you see that all the time. That's why everybody's using China to make their stuff. Everything is, yeah, that's made there too,
Yeah.
right? And this is high quality. You got the
Yeah.
iPhones and stuff. Well,
You
China,
certainly pay for quality, that's for sure.
yeah, right. So a lot of it's made in China, and they're far ahead in a lot of stuff. Like Canada doesn't have that kind of manufacturing capability right now. And like, what would Canada do if China didn't manufacture the stuff that we need?
If we can get those goods anymore,
Yeah,
we would have to figure out how to make our own toys, that's for sure.
make a lot of stuff, right?
TVs,
Yeah,
phones, right?
because we don't make those things here, and so we haven't learned how to do all those
Yeah.
things, and
And
they
it
do it all there.
Yeah, and it used to be we could sell them a lot of food, right? They love
Mm,
our grains, they
okay.
love our pork, our beef.
Mm,
It used to be, but they're getting better at producing their own.
okay.
They're um I think I watched a documentary, and they have pig barns, and it looked like a I want to say a 20-story condominium building
A pig
on
farm
a pig
or a pig barn.
farm,
Barn.
barn,
Yeah.
whatever, factory,
Yeah.
pig factory.
Hmm.
And it was like a 20, I'm guessing 20, but it was a huge building, and on every floor there was more pigs, more pigs, more pigs, more pigs.
Hmm.
So they didn't use much space. They may still have to buy some grain from us or the US, right? When I say us, North America,
Hmm.
buy grain from us to feed them,
Hmm.
but they're getting, at least we're not shipping them as much pork or whatever, right? So,
Hmm.
and that's just another thing. So that's a China thing.
Hmm.
But back in North America, um, we produce, we export pigs as well. And it was going to cost the farmer $60 a pig if the tariffs were coming in. And so what that led the farmers to believe right away is, this is my last batch of pigs. Don't bring me any more little piglets, because at $60 a pig, I'm just done. I'm losing money. So,
Mm.
right. So those kind of things are very real for people, and
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, like I say, so 2 days from now, I guess kind of everything's gonna be revealed what the idea is, and isn't it interesting how one country now has the power to affect so much, right? When thinking about the U.S., right? It's
Yeah.
been the world power
Yeah.
for so many years, right? And the world currency is the dollar, and there's a lot of debate about that too, and whether countries want to keep it that way or not. And but that one country has so much power, and then when one country or a leader of a country then says some things, it impacts so much, right? So we're neighbors, so not only Canada but like the rest of the world, right? So
Yeah.
everything's kind of up in the air until America decides kind of what they want to do, and then everybody else is kind of do things accordingly
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
what America does.
You make adjustments.
Yeah, yeah, because there's so much. There is already a big consolidation of power there, right? The richest country in the world, right, has so much stuff, and it's been really good for so many years, right? As far as that's concerned, right?
Yeah.
A great country, but that there's, that it affects so much when they make a decision. I mean, everybody knows about it.
Oh yeah. And the concentration of power is,
Hmm.
how how can that be? How can it affect so many countries just by threatening,
Yeah.
right? So are we so dependent on them,
Yeah, yeah, everybody is.
right?
We are very dependent. Yeah, so as soon as he says something, then it's like, oh boy, if this stops or this goes like this, then suddenly I'm not sure what I'm gonna do because yeah. But I did hear something. Apparently now Donald Trump wants to devalue the dollar. Is what I've recently been hearing now, so that as part of a plan to bring manufacturing or to strengthen manufacturing in the states, so that he will try somehow to devalue the dollar so that, well, obviously they can manufacture and sell more then, right? Because if
It's
they're,
cheaper to the rest of the world,
yeah, because if it's so
right?
expensive, then nobody else can buy it because the
Yep.
dollar is so expensive,
Yep.
and so and that's why things from China is much cheaper, right? Because, well, there's isn't their currency isn't worth as much, and so they can make things for such a cheap price that from the rest of the world we can easily buy it, and it's cheaper for us. And so that's the drawback of having a strong currency, is because the bad side is, well, countries have a hard time buying things from you because you're so expensive. So I'm not sure how you would plan on doing that exactly, but maybe this is how, with everything going on, kind of just to shake things up a little bit.
That is an interesting concept. To see how that would follow through, that would be extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely has a huge effect.
Mm-hmm.
The value of the U.S. dollar has a huge effect on us here,
Mm-hmm.
because we export to the States, we get paid in U.S. dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of got a raise this year just because of how the U.S. dollar climbed in value, right?
Oh yeah.
And a lot of our labor, they live in Mexico, or even here, and some of our labor, they get paid in U.S. dollars because we get paid in U.S. dollars.
Mm.
So for our pickles, let's just say, and so when they make the exchange, the workers are way better off too, right? So
Yeah.
so
If the American dollar is higher,
it's strong, yes,
yeah, or
yes,
stronger,
yes. So
yeah.
so right now it's looking pretty good, except for if you're traveling there, Henry. It gets very expensive.
Yeah. If I want to go from here and then go over there, that costs a lot of money.
We were down south with our family
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, and it was quite pricey.
Yeah.
So the funny thing we found out is Starbucks coffee is whatever they are here. I don't know. Some are $8 and some are $5 or whatever. I don't go there very often, but dollar for dollar, they were the same price over there. So
really,
after you take our exchange, it was like $10 for, I'm sure
for
it's a mocha, froca, something latte,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I haven't been to Starbucks much either. I think I've been a couple of times in my life. I just realized they were super expensive. I don't know if I personally liked it that much, but I just usually take plain old black coffee anyway, or something.
That's all I
give
take.
me a black
Right?
coffee, nothing in it.
But we have 4 daughters, and they love
like
that kind of stuff. So
yeah, so I guess we'll see about the devaluing the dollar and what that would do. That would change a lot then as well. But it would make sense from a manufacturing standpoint if they want to do more manufacturing to be able to sell. But that's all going to also depend on whether or not countries want to do as much business with them after all of this, because
because of the uncertainty,
yeah,
right?
so
what's the next trick he's going to pull out of his hat, right? So I think you're 100% right, and maybe that's why the factory in Elmer is having Canadian people coming and wanting their stainless steel machine right now by a Canadian company.
Yeah, because Canadians are going to be Canadians.
I guess
maybe we could sell it. Yeah, there's been so much talk about our country being able to trade more interprovincially, and I think that would be very good. I didn't know that there was that many barriers until this all came up. That, as from what I heard, that apparently it's harder to sell things between provinces, or oftentimes harder to sell things between provinces than it is to just sell something to a different country. And
so very good point, Henry. Very good point. Kind of what's happening in the asparagus world. So we have a large asparagus crop in Canada, in Ontario.
We are the largest.
No, we have. I think the largest in Canada by far.
Okay,
but we grow the most asparagus. So what happens to some of our asparagus? It gets exported to the States, right to the States, right. Where does BC get their asparagus from? They get it from Washington, so it comes from the States north. So why not just ship the Ontario asparagus to BC?
Yeah,
right.
Have it.
So instead of doing this and that, I know logistically it's what 35, almost 4,000 kilometers or something. It's far, but it can be done.
Yeah.
We bring produce up from California all the time in the wintertime, right? Strawberries and blueberries. And
I see stuff in the grocery store. So after we've gone shopping, then come home and take a look at where certain berries or grapes or other produce is, and it came from like the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing too, to think about that we can have fruit and vegetables from the other side of the world. I think about that sometimes, like, wow, we can do that. This berry is from who knows where.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that we could break some of this interprovincial or these interprovincial barriers, I think would be good. And maybe that's something just good in and of itself through all of this, just that it's being discussed more,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And not just by the conservatives, right? Like you even have like the liberals and other parties, like everybody, all of a sudden, everybody's talking about some of the points that the Conservative Party had already brought out a long time ago, right? And now they're bringing it up,
Yeah.
which I think is good. These topics needed to come up.
Absolutely. It's forcing us to think outside the box, right?
Yeah. So maybe something good could come of it, right? So
I think it will.
hopefully we can make something good come of it. I mean, we can't always choose all circumstances, right? But we choose what we do in the midst of it. And this is even one of those things as well.
And people are resilient.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I guess though, that's kind of sad, and I hope it doesn't turn too negative, is resentment between countries and people in the countries like Canada and the States or whatever. That doesn't grow, to be a very big, kind of animosity. But this, I hope things can settle to a point where we don't start hating each other so much, right? And you see some of it is already growing and festering, right? And if it's not careful, those are the kinds of things that do lead to wars. Countries taking over other countries because now they're angry about stuff. And sometimes we think, no, those kinds of things would never happen to us here in North America, like Canada and the States, but they can just as easily as somewhere else when people start to get angry with one another.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would hope that we would maybe avoid, is like not like slow down a little bit with hate and that kind of stuff, and to avoid bitterness.
Absolutely. I'll just say it the way I think it is. It's so immature, right? We were at the Blue Jays home opener last week, and for us to boo the national anthem, that's so immature, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? We were down south, like I was just sharing. They loved us there, so and so we went to a touristy area for part of our stay, and they actually depend on us coming and spending our money there, right? And so when they did see us, they saw our plate, or they, we have different credit cards or whatever, or we talk different, and they're like, "You're from Canada, right? Welcome here." So my beef is social media and the news, like I said earlier, is they're trying to sell stories. So what sells? Negativity.
Yeah.
Where's the positive? Where's the good stories?
Yeah.
And there's way more good stories than bad stories, than negative stories. But that the positive stories don't get they don't get likes.
It's not clickbait.
No, it's not clickbait, and that's disappointing to me. But I long hope with you that we can rise above and be mature and not believe everything we see on social media.
And maybe trade relations between countries will change, between Canada and the States, Canada and any other country, and that's fine. Things change, but maybe we can still be friendly. Things are different.
Absolutely.
And maybe things have needed to change anyway, right? So maybe we can make something that's better.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to shake something so that you can build something better, right? Break something so that you can build it up into something maybe better than it was. It's always a possibility.
Absolutely.
Right? But I know you mentioned social media and news and how they can really spin it, and then either one side or the other gets angry. And on the last episode, I talked with James Lunny about this a little bit too, and how, like in the House of Commons, there's what you see on social media or what you see on TV is how they're bickering always in there, or they have all these gotcha lines, or just, it doesn't seem productive at all. And he said he thinks it was better before the camera got in there, is what he said. Because he said now it's all, all gotcha kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He says he thinks the parties got along better before the cameras were involved. And that's kind of the social media thing, right? Like you need something that can go viral.
Yeah.
And so that's oftentimes what we're trying to do, and that's what political parties are doing. That's what news sites are doing is they're often just being very sensational, and yeah, it gets clicks, right? And it gets laughs maybe, and but in the end it can be very divisive.
Yes.
And then, like you mentioned earlier, and then it's hard to know what's even true because both sides are playing the same game,
You hear
right?
one little snippet that's
Yeah,
completely taken out of
yeah,
context.
yeah. And I see it from both sides. I see it from the liberal sides. I see it from the conservative
Yeah.
sides. I see it all the time, and I'm like, oh, can we just, you know, stick to what's actually real,
Yeah.
right? But then we can hopefully, maybe we can make a difference, right? We can do something positive in our community.
Absolutely. We can make a positive influence,
Yeah,
a difference in Bayham.
yeah, exactly. Thinking about local life, Ontario, we're here. So whatever's going to happen in the world, we can still make this small area a good place to live, where we can hopefully get along and help one another. Right?
Absolutely. And to your listeners, other people in their own area
Yeah,
can do the
exactly.
same. We often think little things don't make a difference.
Yeah,
They do.
yeah.
Enough little things can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
Enough little good things can make a huge difference.
Yeah. When one person does it, another person is inspired to do as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you want to do.
Absolutely.
But I think we'll maybe end it there for today. I'm not sure how long we've been going, but it's been a while. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast and talking about all kinds of different stuff. Lots of stuff going on in the world. So when we're thinking about that, we could go on for another couple of days just
Yeah, we
talking about
could.
what's happening in the world. But we'll find out on April 2nd how some things are going to turn out, and then see how that will shape our perspective over the next, month, year.
Yeah. Henry, thank you so much for the invitation and for the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening, joining us for another episode of Local Life Ontario, and we'll see you again in the next podcast.